Teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job, day 1. Today, I realized I don't want to be the middleman in a sales channel for the rest of my life, so I'm beginning to teach myself Unreal Engine in hopes that one day I can support myself with something I'm actually passionate about. I have zero formal education in coding or game design, so I found a recommended course on Udemy from this dude named Steve. Udemy will give you a discount if you create a new account, so it seemed like a cheap, good idea. My goal is to work through it at least 1 hour a day, every day before work, until I'm good enough to support myself. For day 1, I installed Unreal, learned about different view modes, how to manipulate objects, and some basic panel functions. Day 2. Today, I started section 2 of Steve's course on Udemy of learning Unreal Engine. It went over all the free stuff available on Quixel Bridge. I also learned that my PC can't handle too large an open world. I found out how to create 2 suns like in Star Wars, and paint a landscape, which is way harder than it seems, even with free assets. And after finishing the lecture, I'm not the only one struggling. Mr. Steve has made another hour-long lecture solely on fixing the tiling. Looks like I know what I'm doing for my day 3. Day 3. After making a pretty gross-looking level, I stumbled upon an hour-long lecture going over the final details of tile blending within Unreal Engine 5. It's not something I'm super focused on. I want to learn to code, but I would like my portfolio to look as professional as possible. So here I go, learning again. And what I've learned is that there's several ways to combat bad tiling. Alternating texture coordinates to make your texture look larger, changing color variations within the tiling, and also changing pixel depth. And I'm also realizing that it's taking around 2 hours of work to cover 1 hour of lecturing. So it looks like I can hope to finish this course in 4 months instead of 2. Day 4. I spent all of yesterday making new, sexier tile sets, but then went back to my older map to paint foliage, which just turns out is super easy to do.
You can find amazing assets for free on the Unreal Engine Marketplace, import them into your world, add them as a type of foliage, and generate geometry for them with no coding at all.
From there, you can even alter the foliage to make it shake in the wind. Just don't do this with hundreds of large trees, or else you'll crash your PC, like I did. Day 5. I've decided to start again from scratch, as it feels I've been drinking from a fire hose when it comes to all the more in-depth stuff covered in yesterday's lecture. My plan is to scale down my level, and to make simply a starting area that branches off into 3 other distinct levels. This will let me play around with things on a smaller scale, so I'll have more control and hopefully stop future crashes. Day 6. With my new starting area complete, I'm moving on to learning about post-processing. I already kind of know a bit how this should act from my prior experience with Photoshop and Premiere, but basically you can create spaces or post-process volumes where you can alter the RGB values of effects. This can create localized areas with certain distinct features, like making one zone of your map at night, and then when you leave, turn it to day. Day 7. Today we are working with more assets from Quixel Bridge. It's incredible how good everything looks here and how bad my world looks in comparison. It would literally be better if I used assets from Quixel Bridge instead of creating my own landscapes. I'm going to put this huge rock on top of my entrance instead of trying to make some sort of tunnel. And then I'm going to use those rocks on a much larger scale to create a series of peaks and valleys. All in all, I really don't like working with the landscape, but I've finished my 3 zones.
Day 8. Today we are focusing on packed level actors and basically learning how to jack assets from the marketplace. I also realized that rocks don't have collision turned on by default, so I'll have to go in and do it myself. I figured out you can add collision by generating blockage. I'm thinking a bit more about the overall design of my level, and in the end, I think I want to make like a roguelike with third-person combat, since third-person combat is what we're learning in this course, and roguelike games are replayable games that people can normally pick up and play. And when I show this to people, I'd like them to be able to play it on the first try. Day 9. Today I spent 2 hours working on one problem. See, my problem was my map looked fine. I popped in this level from the Unreal Marketplace, got it lined up with my world, cleaned up the entrance, it looked great. Well, it looked shitty, but I got it working. Then I went to test it, and my character shot up into the air. Now comes the true downside of self-teaching and remote learning. I had no one to ask about this oddly specific problem. You can ask ChatGPT, but it has no fucking clue how anything works. It just Googles it and then summarizes the answers. So you say,
"Fine. I'll do it myself."
And just realize that it is incredibly hard to research a problem because it is incredibly hard to describe that problem without using technical terms you might not be familiar with. It's maddening, but this course luckily has a Discord, and Reddit has jerks who happen to be very smart, and I soon realized that my skybox collision was turned on for some reason, so I turned it off and I could play. 10. Today it becomes sink or swim, and we are finally getting into coding. Steven Sensei makes a face reveal. Basically, this is just an hour of lectures on vectors and understanding that vectors might have different coordinates but are mathematically the same, and how you can reverse a vector by making it negative, add, and subtract vectors. Then it moved on how to do all of those things but with 3D vectors. I assume it's important that two different vectors with different coordinates can realistically be thought as the same vector, because computer memory is all about saving something once and then creating a pointer with 1/100th the data size to call over and over again in order to save space. And also, learning to represent coordinates as a vector is very helpful, and it makes sense out of a lot of the details on the details panel. Day 11. Today we are doing something I've already done countless times, setting up an IDE. Whether it was CS50, modding games, or past attempts at self-taught courses, I've set these things up so many times. But this time I'm not going to select every type of coding available and then get completely overwhelmed. I'm going to stick with .NET, C++ dev, and game dev. This will be my first time using IntelliSense 2, so I'm excited to see how that works. The course mentioned Rider for Unreal and Whole Tomato as upgrades to the IntelliSense. Honestly though, I kind of want to buy them because it sounds like they make coding way easier, at least according to Reddit, but for the time being, I'm just going to raw dog it on the settings Mr. Steve suggests. 12. Today was nothing but coding, which is helpful because I'm familiar with C from CS50, but oh boy am I not familiar with C++. From my understanding in the video, the core difference is that C++ has inheritance between its various classes. My guess is that this will be helpful to make sweeping changes to multiple characters at a time, like being able to interact with an item, but then changing the effect that item might have. The course asked us to make an example of these concepts as a demonstration, and since YouTube has become my rubber duck debugger, I'll do my best to explain it to you using Elden Ring characters. Classes can have parents and children. Parents have a pointer, functions, and variables that it passes down through a linked list. Children can have their own children, and they can even have functions that override their functions passed down to them through their parent class. You can also call the functions of child classes through a parent class by using a cast. Day 13. Today is more coding, and I finally understand how my code interacts with Unreal Engine and game engines in general. For this lesson, we basically learned how to create an actor class that prints a message, which should be incredibly useful. Professor Steven broke down all the awesome stuff that UE5 does for you, so if you suck at coding, you don't have to remember to put basic headers or tick functions that are built into Unreal to keep track of what is interacting with an actor at any given moment. The reason I'm highlighting this is that the function affects performance, so I imagine anytime someone is optimizing an Unreal game, they're just scrolling through thousands of lines of code and setting a tick to false. Of course, after creating my item class, I can't find it in Unreal, so I need to pause my progress and participate in the best part of self-teaching, reading horrible Microsoft forums. I don't know what is going on, but I know that I get a bunch of red X's on my compatibility test, so I'm going to get those sorted and pray to any god that will listen it shows up. Day 14. Today we learned about blueprints, and I got to say, I love them. When I took CS50, they had this thing called Scratch that I absolutely love to use, and boy am I psyched that there is basically coding in Unreal with a similar block method. Yes, I know it is not the same, but damn do I like it, and it makes it feel more understandable after getting beat down by the IDE yesterday. The next lesson focuses on using debug lines and spheres, and I can get all the blueprints to work, but working on the code itself is much more tedious. It's almost painful to see how much it takes to make a sphere in C++ instead of in Blueprint. I'm sure there is a good reason to use raw code over blueprints, but goddamn are they helpful. Day 15. Today, I'm working on a challenge. See, we spent the last few days learning how to draw debug lines, points, and spheres. Now we are tasked with creating a debug object. The thing that instantly jumps to mind is a debug box. But since I'm bad at coding, I'm probably going to start with the square. If I look into the debug helpers file, I can see that there is actually already a debug helper for both these things, which I'm not going to lie, takes a lot of wind out of my sails. However, something I'm running into is that Unreal recommends 32 gigs of RAM, and my 16 is not cutting the mustard. Every time I change a line, I have to hot reload it, and it takes like 10 to 15 minutes. And then I do 4 iterations of that, and it ends up not working. I know my clear problem is with this forward piece. My current understanding of what a vector forward is the direction of the vector. But the second I add a third axis, my eyes get crossed. This is gonna take another day. Day 16. Today, I'm working on a challenge that I failed yesterday, the drawing of a debug box from scratch. So I decided to go back and watch the lecture about 3D vectors with the context of drawing a box, and I've since realized that I need to find out where the first 2 vectors' points of intersection are and go from there. I can do some freaky math shit to make it a square, but I literally do not know how to find 2 points of a 3D vector. So here I go, learning again. And what I've learned is that I'm simply not smart enough to do it. I really think my inability has less to do with the overall potential of me to do it,
I can't. I simply can't.
but rather just the complete lack of understanding to accomplish it. If I had a teacher, I'm sure they could explain it to me easily, but I don't, so I'm going to take the L and come back to it when I have a better understanding of how Unreal handles 3D vectors. I do not want to spend 5 days brute forcing a solution to an artificial problem. When I've done that in the past with self-teaching, I just spin out and never pick it up.
Day 17. After taking an L and giving up on last section's challenge, I'm happy to get some lecturing by the sensei. And this time, it's on a very sexy topic. Moving things with numbers. I feel like this lesson should help me conceptualize how things are moving into 3D space through code, and what I've learned is that pretty much our entire understanding of math comes from the right angle. The amount of logics and proofs this dude just threw at me to explain why the sine function graphs like a wave is absurd, but it looks like that is the key to getting things to move on their own in a pattern. So things like a platform moving back and forth in a video game or up and down. Tomorrow, we take that learning and apply it to those stupid debug circles.
Day 18. Okay, the name of today's game is Moving Things with Code. Basically, the first real programming I'll ever do. The building block that all game devs tell you to start with. 18 days in of learning, and I'm here. And as it turns out, it's pretty easy. The blueprint demonstration made a lot of sense, and I'm just getting better at making sure my code doesn't have stupid errors and misspellings, like missing semicolons. This is incredibly helpful for me, because every time it hot loads, my computer hisses and moans like a dying animal. Day 19. Okay, I got some more RAM, and despite everyone telling me online I shouldn't use 48 gigs, I'm going to because I'm broke. Oh, look at that. Everything crashed for no real reason. Q spending hours to download new graphics drivers, cleaning my PC, reformatting my PC. What ended up being the problem was that when I was resetting the PC with the RAM, I must have accidentally checked XMP. I don't even know what that is. It turns out XMP is a program that's designed to make your RAM go faster, but if you turn it on, it actually kills any program with a memory leak. This includes things like incredibly buggy code with Unreal, and yet it's honestly very inspirational to see that someone on a professional level has released an incredibly buggy piece of code that has caused my PC not to run. I feel like a real pro. Day 20. Today was not a very sexy day of learning. I spent hours futzing with variables, learning how to add them to classes, expose them to Blueprint, and change them with the details panel. I just wish I had something cooler to show for it now that my PC is working as expected, but that is a win in and of itself, and my hot reloading times are so much faster now. Day 21. On day 15 and 16, I had my ass handed to me by a challenge of drawing a two-dimensional shape, and I blamed my lack of success on my lack of understanding of geometry. Today I did it. I drew a damn debug square, and it took a lot more looking up than I would have liked, but it feels good to get this challenge done. Just don't ask me how to build a debug box. Day 22. Today I learned about components within Unreal. It would seem that this is where the real meat of programming will come from, in regards to things like clip checks, aka interactions between various actors, which is basically all of gaming, but it also holds important information for every item/class. So I would say it's pretty goddamn important. I have to imagine this is where the fun begins. We also went over pivot points, which I'm guessing is how animators use Unreal to make things move. Day 23. For this section's challenge, we are tasked with building a component of our own creation. I just want to build a block man. A man with a chest, arms, legs, head, and no real neck. Honestly, I think I did a great job. Next thing on the list should be making him move. Day 24. Today we learned all about skeletal meshes and capsules within Unreal. Capsules are basically collision boxes you can tie events to. You do this because whatever model you are using is too taxing to use its polygons as hitboxes, at least 9 out of 10 times. So a close enough collision box is good. We also learned about skeletal systems. I never would have guessed that every model in Unreal has a legit ass skeleton inside it, but damn, even the free assets on this are basically fun medical models. Day 25. Today we start our next task of making a playable bird, something with animation in its wings that we can fly around the map using a controller. My guess is that we take the movement and give it to our player character later, but for now I'm creating a bird class in C++, creating a bird in Blueprint and Unreal, hitting up Quixel Bridge, which I found out is going to be closing, and that makes me sad. It's amazing how tech I just learned about can become obsolete in 25 days. I hope this new fab thing is better, but for now it's new, different, and I hate it. Day 26. Keeping up with Day 25's theme of previously awesome tech becoming useless, it turns out that Unreal has made an enhanced input system in place of their older system that this course covers. So the professor basically just hit me with a surprise hour lecture, followed by several smaller surprise lectures. The cool part is that you can actually find all these lectures on the Droox Mechanic YouTube itself. Please go check it out. It's where all this is coming from. But the long and short of it is that basically you can use Epic's real handy movement system, or you can code it yourself, which is way, way harder. Either way, it's probably good to learn to map C++ functions to buttons. Day 27. Today was another plain day. No heat, no big sexy visuals. Just adding a basic flying animation to my crow. But then I got hit with an error MSB 3073 exited with code 6. If anyone knows what that is or what that means, please tell me in the comments. But for now, I have to use this Reddit thread for a fix. The top fix is clear your intermediate folder, clear your saved folder, clear your binaries folder, regenerate project files by right-clicking the .u project file, and rebuild. And it turns out I had to delete the intermediate folder with the command prompt, but God bless Reddit fixes like this, because everything loads nicely now. Time to spend the next hours animating this guy's wings. JK, you pretty much just click and drag. God bless Marketplace assets. Day 28. Yesterday I got a crow's wings flapping and binded some C++ functions to button presses. Now we're going to talk about movement, which begins by creating an input within Unreal, assigning it a button, and then assigning that button a value. For example, you can map that button to change one element of a 3D vector. So like when you press the W key on your keyboard, this is a graph of what it looks like. This is one with D pressed, and this is one with W and D pressed. Using a combination of these techniques, you're pretty much able to move a character wherever you need it to in a 3D space. Day 29. After going through 2-hour-long lectures on movement, I'm still very confused on how movement works, and more importantly, how to get it all going in C++ instead of Blueprint. The key thing I've learned is the importance of .build.cs, which isn't even written in C++, it's written in C#, like some kind of song. You need to add files into the list of the build file to get access to those functions contained within those systems, like the enhanced movement files. But now I'm getting errors from files I haven't even touched. Great. Day 30. After adding my enhanced input system to the projects.build file, I've broken everything. But this time, I've broken things that I haven't even opened or touched. I do not understand what the real problem is, so here I go, learning again. And what I've learned is that really no one knows the cause of this problem. However, it seems deleting the game's files and rebuilding solves them. So it looks like I'm gonna have to do that pretty much every time I want to make an update to my project. Hooray. Day 31. Today marks a month of learning Unreal, and I gotta say, I'm kinda saddened by how little I've learned. I've watched a lot, and I have learned some things, but if you ask me to repeat any of the things I've learned in coding from scratch, I would not really be able to do it. But I'm also not going to neglect the progress of a baby step. And I finally got access to the enhanced movement functions in C++ through my .build file, and I've restarted my project yet again, so hopefully I won't need to rebuild it every single time. The repetition caused by fixing my own mistakes is actually forcing me to learn things, and for that, I'm grateful.
Day 32. After getting the input subsystems to work yesterday, I spent today actually adding float value changes to the W and S key. No longer will I only be able to move forward, but now also backward. I wish I had more to show for it visually because this was a huge pain in my ass. The compiling problems popped up yet again, but I've learned that my project errors typically stem from Visual Studio, so I should stick to hot reloading in Unreal when I can. Just another day. Day 33. Today was fun because I got to learn about cameras, the bane of every Dynasty Warriors game known to man. And as it turns out, Unreal makes it very easy to use. Setting it up in Blueprint took a few button presses, and C++ only a few lines of code. It's very funny how the course feels the need to include a common buzz fix because Unreal freaks out if you name a spring arm. Just another day. Day 34. Today I once again worked on movement. After having a very easy and fun day with day 33, I spent the better part of 2 hours trying to add rotation to player inputs using these 3 functions. Basically, Unreal sees your mouse as nothing but a rotator, and using that, we can add steering to our crows and forward and backwards movement. Just another day. Day 35. In the last video, we got the ability to turn our crow through Blueprint in C++. Now, we do the same thing, but with the enhanced input system, which I'm told is better for my project, but I have a hard time believing that because it takes 10 lines of C++ code compared to only 4 boxes in Blueprint. I know that it is cool to have your mouse control both X and Y rotations, but it just feels like I'm doing things the hard way. Just another day. Day 36. Today I learned a bit more about how Unreal Engine handles open world stuff, mainly how it loads and unloads chunks based on distance, which feels like common knowledge for people who play open world games. It's why games like Pokemon have pop-in. They only load what you can see, but as a dev you need to be aware that they unload things you don't see as well. So if your character's origin is at a certain point, and if you go far enough, that character disappears. I imagine other engines like Bethesda's handle loading differently, as their characters never seem to reset, and also why said devs wouldn't switch to Unreal. Just another day, day 37. Today I learned more about Fab, which is the new Unreal marketplace that is built right into the Epic Game Store. Wait, no, that was the old marketplace. This one is online, and you need to install it into your engine through the old method before you even use it. And then you have to activate it in a web browser, which really isn't that hard. But I hope the money they are making off this is worth the minor inconvenience that it caused their most important customer, me, someone who's only done this for 37 days now. Just another day, day 38. After getting Fab up and running, we are trying to input a character from a large Unreal test game. It will allow us to take animations and blueprints from them and alter them instead of starting from scratch. The catch is I need to import them through Unreal, which should be fine. The game says it's compatible with my version, but every single time I run it, I get 3 plugins that I need to install. Only I have no option to install them. I've done a good 45 minutes of solution searching, and I can't find anything concrete. I'm gonna do a Hail Mary of troubleshooting. Uninstall and reinstall. Good thing it's only 90 gigabytes, so it should only take a day and a half of work. Just another day, day 39. I was able to get Fab up and running. Reinstalling the Epic content allowed me to migrate it into my own project. So let me introduce you to Echo, who currently looks like Neo from The Matrix. We created a C++ class for her, which doesn't functionally look much different from a pawn class. But on to the next lesson. More movement mechanics to struggle through. And struggle through I did, because I just completed this lesson with the knowledge that tomorrow we learned the real and new method for adding enhanced input. Just another day, day 40. There was nothing cool about today. I just spent an hour learning how to change the code I made yesterday. But in the lecture, I did get a peek at what we will do in the future, and it looks like enhanced input really comes in clutch for everything that isn't movement. Just another day, day 41. Today was also not a sexy day. I just added a camera to my character like I did my crow. However, I can say I now possess 1/2 of the skills to make a prop hunt knockoff. So that is cool. Just another day, day 42. Today I learned about rotation matrices. Or rather, I watched a video where Professor Steven told me about them, then struggled to follow along. Then, during the sample lecture, I broke my character's movement. And this is all made even more frustrating because I know this is using the old movement system. And tomorrow, I will spend the next hour turning this broken movement into enhanced input, which will either improve it or break it further. Just another day, day 43. So after learning nothing about vector rotation matrices, I went back and rewatched everything from yesterday, and I still know nothing about them. But I redid my code and got movement working nicely again. I realized my mistake happened probably when I added my spring arm component. I changed some code I shouldn't have, and I feel like a dummy because it took another hour to get it to work. I realized I included some things I needed to not do if I wanted movement to stay working. Just another day, day 44. Today I learned about grooming components. For some reason I can't edit them, but I'm not going to worry about that now because these things are crazy. It's like a horse fan stream, hundreds of strands of hair that need to be layered together to look luscious. Then we learned how to change hair color, which I couldn't do because my editor was not working due to this code. Just another day, day 45. Today is bug fixing, which I have to say Visual Studio is useless for. If you get something wrong in your code body, it freaks out and shows you errors in H files you haven't even touched. The mistake is thinking that the problem isn't your code. It's always your code. So here I go, learning again. And what I've learned is that the hot reloader in Unreal tells you the real fault in the code much better than Visual Studio can. But if you haven't gotten the right plugins to check, you're shit out of luck. I wish the troubleshooting process didn't involve commenting out lines of code, deleting files, rebuilding files, just to see it's not working. Oh well, just another day, day 46. After spending a few hours troubleshooting yesterday, I think I got the solution to my bug this morning. I followed a few Reddit threads that informed me I had to turn on a hair assets plugin in the .u project file, as well as the .build file. Shout out to the random dude on Reddit who 2 years ago posted this answer. Oh, and look at that. The editor that didn't work on day 44 works now. This is actually a very rewarding feeling. Just another day, day 47. I learned all about animation blueprints today, and when I say all, I really mean such a small amount I hesitate to call it learning, but it is an incredible system. The way you use blueprints to string actions together through state machines is really easy. State machines themselves are basically logic boxes that can figure out how to change between two animations. It's so much easier than coding. And seeing the engine do the work to swap between the two animations is amazing. Just another day. Don't you hate painstakingly making something just to delete it and then rebuild it in a harder, albeit better way? Well, welcome to teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, day 48. I spent all of yesterday making this character move in an easy Unreal Engine coding method called Blueprint. Then I spent all of today doing the same thing in C++, which is a tedious pain in the ass, but it's good to learn. And in this case, what I've learned is that the animation blueprint system in Unreal is built off the anim instance C++ class. This class comes with some inherited functions that make it easy to swap between skeletal mesh poses. Jump for joy! Now my character can jump. I've been teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it for 48 days now, and I've finally mastered a third dimension of movement. It was actually surprisingly easy to do as far as moving the character up in the air. I did have to go back to a previous video to watch an old lecture on how to change the old binding system for jumping to the new enhanced movement method, but on the plus side, it seems to be the last time I'm going to have to do that in a while, and that makes me want to. Do you remember when video game characters couldn't use stairs and floated when they stepped off ledges? Well, today is day 50 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and I've learned that we've solved this problem through the most complicated way possible: inverse kinematics. Now, what that is, I'm not 100% sure, but basically IK is the process of measuring the distance between the foot of your character to the floor, then figuring out which way the bones within your character need to bend in order to get that foot to the floor. And I gotta say, it's a shitload of work just to get your slopes looking better. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Collision, which is what I learned about today when teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, day 52. Today I mourned the loss of Quixel Bridge and had to add some assets to my game through Fab. Reminder, claim all of the mega scans you can before 2025, because they will soon require payment. Back to coding. I learned about the difference between collision, physics, and visibility. Visibility is things appearing to the camera, physics is the mesh being moved by the world, and collision is having two meshes bump against each other. I got to dick around with anti-gravity and invisible walls. It answered so many questions like 55. I do not understand delegation in Unreal. From what I can gather, it's basically the idea that child classes and functions within those child classes can be called through parent classes. And I think this is all important because most C++ classes we create are from Unreal-made parent classes and include functions critical to the game engine's tracking and interaction systems, from boss fights to empty spheres. But if you ask me how to implement any of this logic in C++, I would be shit out of luck. Just another day. There was no news today, day 56, of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. I just took what I did in day 54 and made it so the sphere returned a message using C++. It looks like just boring coding, just debug messages and invisible spheres. I really felt the effects of restarting so much because my item was missing keyed code chunks that I needed. Just another day. Day 57. Today was a challenge day. I basically have to do everything I did yesterday, but instead of an object hitting an invisible sphere, the text has to pop up when they leave the invisible sphere. My message shall be,
I'm the Joker, baby!
and if you want to take bets on if I can do it without watching the completion video, go ahead and leave a reply in the comments. Find out tomorrow. I failed. It's day 58 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and I am a failure. I had to watch the walkthrough video in order to complete yesterday's challenge, but am I going to let that get me down? Slightly. Yet I'll soldier on to the next challenge of creating my next 3 items. Behold, my currency, which is a button, my health potion, which is an apple, and my weapon, which is a baseball bat. Day 59. Today is weapon practice, which is pretty much the best part of everything. It is so helpful to have pre-built weapon classes in Unreal, and also pre-built 3D models on Fab. RIP Quixel Bridge. And I was also right from the day we did components. Sockets are the basis for animations and equipment.
Just another day. I do not like Adobe software. I use it to edit these videos, but I hate my reliance on it. So what joy it is to find out on day 60 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it that I need to use an animation website called Maximo, owned by Adobe, to get animations. It is very easy, it is very cool, and it looks like a good product, but I just don't trust them like that. And I would love any suggestions to the alternative because day 61. Today I T-post. What a glorious day. But I got the files from Maximo yesterday, uploaded to Unreal Engine today. It was nice and easy. And then I had the lecture basically say, hey, you have to learn this the hard way, but if you want to waste 5 minutes learning it the easy way, then go for it. So I did, and now my names must be bands because I can make her dance.
I took a week off to go to a Surf's Up cosplay convention, and now you can call me Tony Stark because I am a weapons manufacturer. It's day 62 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and I'm back at the grindstone. I've made a weapon class from the item class that I made earlier, which is awesome because that means it already has built-in collision detection. What is less awesome was learning about virtual functions and everything we need to do to override them. But that should make fine-tuning of the weapon collision much less daunting, especially since I'll probably end up with a few of these weapons. Day 63. On day 60, I made my character dance the easy way. Now I'm going to teach myself to do it the hard way, not by throwing stacks of cash, but by building an IK retargeting rig, which is basically renaming every group of bones in the targeted skeletal mesh as the same name in its original mesh. The newer, easier way of doing this removes the tedious nature of making these bones, but we learn the hard way because I'm sure it will pay off. Right? Just another day. This is how my character should be equipping their weapon. This is how they're currently doing it. Now, what's bad about this is I can't really Google this. What would I type in? My character desperately wants to be good at Quidditch? It's day 64. Teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. And I'm assuming my bug has something to do with messing up the IK rig. I think the character must be fine. I'm not floating away when I move the character around. Problem only happens when I interact with the weapon. And the weapon itself is only like 20 lines of code. There's not much that can go wrong there. Who knows? So here I go, learning again. And what I've learned is I made this socket on the root component. In the root component, my feet. I was not supposed to do this. Why I did this, I do not know. Just another day. Day 65. There was no sexy thing to show off today. All we did was learn how to equip a weapon using a binding input. However, as we know, this is the old way of doing things. So I really spent about 20 minutes learning this method and then 40 minutes learning the new method, which I kind of already know, but need to go back and rewatch the video because I don't really know. Just another day. Day 66. Today, I learned about enums, which are basically just a catalog of states for your various C++ classes. For Unreal Engine specifically, there are so many similar classes and states that they use scoped enums, which if I understand correctly, basically means you have to specify which class you are calling in addition to that enum you're calling. I'm guessing this is helpful in case you have an enum for on fire. That could be a good thing for a weapon class, but a bad thing for a player class. Right now, I'm using them to make my idle animations look pretty. Just another day. Today, I got an ask a question I've always wanted. Will it blend? It's day 67 of teaching myself Unreal Engine until I'm good enough to get a job at it. And today I learned about blending animations within Unreal using blueprints. And it's cool. All you need to do is take the enums we built last time and then expose them to the blueprint in C++. From there, it's only an incredibly long series of complicated steps before your animation blending. I make it sound hard, but I really cannot imagine doing this without Unreal Engine or doing this in C++ raw. I can see why so many studios that make good-looking games rely on Unreal. Ugly blueprints you've created. Do I care that it broke my inverse kinematics in the process? No. My character will just favor their left leg. Plus, I'm pretty sure that's my fault and not the fault of abstraction, even though by definition, it seems to make things more confusing. And speaking of confusing, I'll never say blueprints are easy after this lesson. It's easier than C++, yeah, but doing things like this makes me appreciate the small things, like being able to say, day 69. Lamo. Today's the end of the chapter, and for this challenge I have to give my character a two-handed weapon, for which of course I am choosing the katana. It is the superior blade to all Western steel. Plus, it's used in Metal Gear. The teacher is really outdoing himself. He's asking us to build an attack animation, which is something we actually haven't been taught yet. In fact, the whole next section is entitled Attacking. I've found a katana that is a skeletal mesh, so I'm going to convert it to a static mesh, copy and paste the code for my weapon class, and this should... Oh wait, that didn't do anything. If I can grab this apple that I made using the same copy and paste method, it traps me in a glass box of emotion, but I can grab it. So why can't I grab this? Just another day. Well, that didn't work. It's day 70 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and here I go, learning again. And what I found out is the problem has to do with my equip command. I'm going to have to rebuild everything from the ground up. It took hours, and I ran into this really challenging problem of not knowing C++. That is a critical error that will hinder any attempt of thinking outside of or inside of the box. So I had to ask AI for help, and help it did not. Wrong answer after incorrect formatting until I finally realized true or false. I'm sticking to fucking booleans and ints until I can understand C++ better. Enums and functions can go get fucked because I'm just not using them. After all, look, I got it working. Here we go. 71. Let me be clear. I got my animations working correctly last video. I just made it look like it was broken as a goof. See, look how good they're working now. So all I have left is the last part of the challenge, adding an attack animation. Now, as I've previously stated, I do not know C++, so I'm going to cheat and find my answer. How? By continuing on with the course and having it teach me how to add an attack animation. I'll avoid doing the work and learning by doing the work and learning. This lesson also teaches about attack montages, which are cool, but there is no way in hell I could have figured this out on my own. I simply do not know enough about C++ or Unreal Blueprints. It's truly the best and worst part about self-teaching. It's easy to get lost without a guide, but no one will give a shit if you read ahead to find out forbidden knowledge. Just another day. Day 72. Today, I took what I did yesterday in Blueprints and now do it in C++. Only this time we are implementing some code to play a random attack. And we're going to base this code on a line of coin flip logic. And I want to highlight this because it introduced the C++ concept of switches, a concept that appears to be key in doing just about anything in C++. It's basically a sexier if statement that plays nicely with the enums we made earlier. This is important because these enums are how we keep track of things like if the player is attacking. So if they are attacking, we can tell the game to ignore their commands. I like to think this is to protect the player from themselves, but really, I know it's to protect my buggy code from them. Just another day. I have nothing cool to report. It's day 73 of teaching myself Unreal Engine until I'm good enough to get a job at it, but I haven't been doing that recently. Instead, I've been teaching myself C++. It's boring, visually unimpressive work, but it's the work that needs doing. Learning why we refactor things by making new functions for them. Ensuring commenting on said functions, or just double checking that your enums start with ease so you can understand your own work better. The steps people generally take on the path to having cleaner code. But that doesn't look impressive, so you see this? Take a good look. It's day 74 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. I'm trying to appreciate the things my character isn't doing. It's not sliding around while attacking anymore, nor is it getting stun locked, something I thought I figured out yesterday, but when futzing with my functions, broke. Because this course doesn't really go over how to make your character not move using the enhanced input system. It only focuses on the old system. Maybe if I went back and watched enough videos, I'd find something. But I really wanted to fix it myself, and fix it I did. My attack end function wasn't firing. I was able to figure that out by troubleshooting my C++ code using Blueprints, which felt great. I mean, day 75. Do you hear that? That's right. I've mastered sounds. And by mastered, I've means barely scratched the surface. In this lesson, we got standard wave sounds set up to play when I swing the sword, but also worked with something called meta sounds, which are basically allowing you to edit wave files using Unreal Engine's Blueprint system, which is great because it's super easy to make classic video game grunts and sword swings. And I love how the course gives us these sounds to use for free. But I gotta say, don't do this in public because these sounds can be rather sus. Just another day. Guess whose spurs go jingle jangle? That's right, mine do. It's day 76 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and today was a bit of a mixed bag. Yes, I got tons of hands-on practice creating meta sounds, to the point where I'm confident enough where you can give me a series of wave files, and I can create a randomized meta sound from there. But in the process, I've broken a bunch of the work that I've done on day 74. My attack end is no longer firing after my first attack montage. But I don't know how to fix it, so instead I'm just gonna delete delete everything in the attack montage and redo it from scratch. There we are. Now, have you ever had a bad day? Well, I certainly have. And today, day 77 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, has been a real kick in the balls. What should have been a 10-minute lecture fixing the wonky IK bones in my character has sprawled into a never-ending search for answers as to why one of my legs won't touch the ground. I've watched the inverse kinematics video twice now, and I can't see what I'm doing wrong. The worst part is, I actually know what I'm doing wrong. I forgot to mark the right foot bone somewhere, but I can't find it. And after making the changes in this lecture, my wonky leg actually looks worse. And will I persevere? No, I'm giving up. Some days are bad, and this is one of them. Day 78. Well, today was better than yesterday. I learned a lot more about the actual powers of booleans, really grasped the purpose of if-else statements, which is basically to gate the statement to the first condition. And I learned this all while actually adding the ability to equipped and unequipped weapons. Now, I know the weapon is not leaving my character's hand, but I can confirm that they are in a state of disarmament due to the laissez-faire posture they adopt. This is what victory looks like in game design, making it halfway to getting a feature to look bad but work as intended. Just another day. Day 79. Today, I was able to take a weight off my back. Get it? I'm good enough at this to tell jokes through the engine. But real talk though, today I mostly learned about the powers of automatic refractoring in Visual Studio. It's a very neat trick that makes people's obsession with refractoring make more sense. This code should have taken me 2 hours to implement before I knew about this. And now, it still takes me 2 hours because I set a montage name to equip instead of equipped, but at least refractoring is easier. Just another day. Hello? Bass department? I've been learning all about sound bases on day 80 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. And these sound bases are the C++ building blocks that Metasounds are built off of. And as such, it's good to know how to use them. Mainly so I can say that working with Metasounds themselves within Unreal Engine is way easier. But the nice thing about this lesson was learning more about the default values of functions, and most importantly, when not to screw with them. And now my sword has both pickup and equip sound bases. Day 81. Today we learned how to edit animation, and I know you may be thinking that I've basically spent all the past week doing that, and you'd be right. Only this time we figured out how to edit animations and create entirely new animation files from them, which will be used in the next section challenge. I know some of you may want to see it completed already, but I'm not that fast. It's the holidays and I'm super fucking tired. Just another day. Teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. Day 82. Today we're working on the challenge from before the break, and I'm going to go with option A because I want to create a new attack and ideally have it be a heavy attack that can break shield/armor. So I'll assign a new input in the project settings, copy the code for attack, but call it heavy attack, download an animation from Mixamo, upload it, retarget it, and shit, I know, I didn't assign the proper attack montage in the character blueprint. Here we go. Nope. Shit. Alright, well, time to rewatch the lesson on attack animations. Just another day. I got heavy attacks working. It's day 83 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and with this done, I've moved on to the next lesson. Tracing. Tracing is pretty huge in game dev, so I was pumped to dive into it, and I was able to do it using Blueprint, so I turned to C++ and fucked up so bad I basically broke Visual Studio. I can build other projects, but my main project I've spent a few dozen hours on can no longer hot reload or build itself. Well, at least day 84. The most common solution to my debugging problem from yesterday was reinstall Windows, which I'm not doing. So am I going to give up?
Yes. A similar event did take place.
But only on this project. I'm going to rebuild my project better, faster, and more agile, with less of an ability to destroy the very tools I've used to create it. In fact, I've even gotten box tracing to work strictly through C++. I'm not sure why it would show the details for these properties in the engine, and it's not showing the details for these properties that have the exact same code, but with different names. But do I care? No, it's working. Just another day. I'm back in the saddle. It's day 85 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and I am no longer scared of destroying my own project. Mainly because I now know I can get it working again, and also because I learned about T-arrays, which are basically a list of things, but instead of being an unfun computer science list that starts at 0 and kills your program if you ask for a number it doesn't know, it's a more forgiving computer science one that won't kill your shit. And did I do anything cool with this knowledge? Not really, but but day 86. Behold, my first enemy. He's wonderful, and you can get him on the Fab Marketplace for free right now. So get after it. It's modular, so hopefully I'll be able to create a light, medium, and heavy version of him. But I'm worried because I did deviate from the course recommended Adobe Maximo skins. And there is just no way that choice will come back to bite me in the ass later, right? Just another day. There is just no way that choice will come back to bite me in the ass later, right? Well, it came back to bite me in the ass almost immediately. It's day 87 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. And today I was supposed to learn about Blender by adding a root bone to our Maximo model so I can do cooler animations. But my model already had a root bone. So instead of learning about Blender, I jerry-rigged my skeleton to work. And I found out there was a difference between a skeleton and a skeletal mesh in Unreal Engine. Can I explain that difference? No. But at least my guy has idle animations now. Just another day. Day 88. Today we learn about interfaces, or basically how to make a class inherent functions from two classes, which is useful because it lets me be lazy and simply apply an interface to an already existing class. But will I do anything major with this knowledge? No. Not yet. As I said earlier, I'm lazy. But I did slap it on this deer, which is kind of neato. Plus, it makes my hits look like fireworks. Just another day. I'm not very good at trigonometry. It's day 89 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. And man, am I bad at math. But I need math to make my enemy react from being hit. You do this by basically cutting the dude into 4 quadrants, each with its own animation assigned to it. You then use something called a dot product, which no one understands. And Bob's your uncle. This guy's reacting to your hits. Only this feels very 2000 and late. If you look at something modern, the reactions seem to be dynamic from where the player's being hit by the object itself. I can't think of the equations you would need to make this look good, which I'm not doing because day 90. I feel like a janitor the way I'm cleaning up my code. For real, for real. Today's work was really just getting the animations to look better and bug fix. Things like only having 1 hit per attack animation and making the attack sound effects quieter if they're farther away. But I really just want to shout out the name of this course again. It's the Ultimate Unreal Engine 5 C++ course on Udemy. And this is not an ad, but you should give it a shot. I'm also going to put it in the descriptions of my videos going forward. Just another day. At day 91. You hear that? That's the sound of pain. My enemy makes noise when I hit him now. But does this noise really sound right? The course thinks this is my enemy, but this is. So which bone sound should I use? Breaking? Cracking? Xylophone? Minecraft? I'm doing Minecraft. Just another day. I must be Bono because it's Bloody Sunday over here while teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. Day 92. And yes, I know that my skeleton bleeding doesn't make much sense, but unlike simple wave files, Niagara plugins scare me, and that's the system that's used to do particle effects in Unreal Engine 5. So I stuck to the course recommended procedures, which turns out are actually from another Epic sample project. I gotta say, I really love stealing things. Day 93. Today, I made my attacks look nice. I did this by increasing the animation speed, changing where I made sus sounds, and adding a weapon trail from this game, Paragon. Remember it? Me neither, but it failed so bad, Epic lets us loot its corpse for the price of on the house. So I'm not complaining. Just another day. Day 94. It's challenge day, but honestly this challenge is easy. All we need to do is add a few more effects to our attacks. A pouch jingle here, a cloud of dust there, but instead I went ahead and redid them entirely. I want to be able to chain attacks together, so I removed my second attack animation and added a simpler one. Then I tried to remove the code that randomizes the attacks, but I broke everything, so I controlled Z, and that's just another day. Day 95. Today was cool because I got to break shit. I remember when I was a little kid, we had E3, which doesn't exist anymore. And Epic made this big presentation for Gears of War 2, which was coming out on Unreal Engine 3, I think. And it included how you could make destructible building interiors. I thought this was going to be everywhere in game. Battlefield Bad Company showed how much fun it can be. But in 2025, it's really not that common. But I can do it in Unreal Engine 5, so long as I use pre-built pots. But regardless of whose assets I'm stealing, the fracture system in Unreal is crazy. Just another day. Day 96. And call me Dagoth because I'm a god. I've mastered the ability to create force fields and blow shit up. I don't even care that it took me the better part of 3 hours to get it working. look at the results. When you do something visually impressive like this, all of a sudden you stop really working and start digging around. And that's when I'm having the most fun. Just another day. Day 97. Yesterday was fun because I got to break shit with force fields. Today is fun because I get to break shit with weapons, which will be how you get health in the LOTR game I'm trying to emulate. And also because I want to have a breakable shield. And now that I know how to break an object with something that the character holds, I just need to know how to break something the character holds with an object. Just another day. Day 98. Today I added some sounds to my barrel breaking, and I used the ones from Resident Evil 4, which is pretty sweet. I also got a first-hand lesson in pain when I discovered creating blueprint-enabled events and the ripple effect of changing one thing in one H file that results in an error so bad you simply crash the game once your barrel breaks. Just another day. Day 99. Today is a challenge day, and our challenge is to break another mesh. But I'm not just going to break a mesh. I'm going to break a mesh that my enemy is holding. Thankfully, I have some nice code for equipping a weapon to a character, so I'm going to copy that from my main character onto my enemy. Then I'm going to make a new child class from my weapon class. I'm going to edit that code in C++ to take a geometry collection, and bam. Oh wait, that didn't work. Just another day. Day 100. What a milestone. Just kidding. Everything is terrible. I can't get this damn shield to explode. I can get it to make a sound and disappear. I can get it to shoot away from my character like machine gun bullets. But for some reason, when I swing my sword at it, it doesn't break at all. Only my player and simulated physics seem to damage it, which is annoying because my force field on my bat should be making those physics. But it's not. I mean, it is because it's breaking the barrel, but it's not because it's not breaking the shield. Thankfully, there are like 8 different parameters that could be affecting weapon collisions on this shield because it itself is the child of a weapon class. I do not know what to do. Just another day. Day 101. I give up, not on learning Unreal, but this challenge. And not even really this challenge. Technically, I've completed it. I did break another mesh, but I want to break a mesh that my character is holding, which I know I can do because I've successfully made a shield that breaks when I hit it and is a child of the weapon class, which my character can hold. I'm only giving up on attaching that weapon to an actor, and not just because I'm too stupid to figure out the sockets. That's only a part of it. The real reason is that the more I learn, the more I realize geometry collections are bad to load, and I want dozens of shielded enemies on screen. The proper thing to do is to take an item mesh, have it register a hit, spawn a geometry collection, and then have the item mesh disappear, then use the hit data to blow up the geometry collection. But to implement that would mean spending 4 days trying to solve problems that later lectures could easily teach. Just another day. It's day 102 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and today was a good day. After giving up on the challenge from yesterday, I moved on to the next lecture, which was creating items to pick up. The game I'm trying to emulate has both health and XP pickups, so my plan is to make an XP pickup. And the course recommends we use files made by a student in the course, but I have to give him credit. So instead of doing that, I'm going to take files from a now defunct game, Viva Pinata Trouble in Paradise, because someone on Reddit seems to have a catalog of every single sound in the game, which is just terrific. And that's why my experience pickups sound like this instead of a more classic just another day. Day 103. I want to address the barrel in the room. Yes, I know. Barrels do not break this way. For starters, it shouldn't just crumble downwards. It should fly in the opposite direction of my bat. Also, barrels aren't hollow, and mine fall apart like they're a solid rock. But this is not my final product. The fine-tuning will come later. This is just to get the motions of breaking something and having an item spawn from it, which I did today. First through blueprints.
That's good.
And through C++.
That's bad.
But I did get it working.
That's good.
Just another day.
That's bad.
Day 104. Today was annoying, mainly because I had to deal with arrays, but I did learn more about the num function and various helpful ways you can keep from destroying your own program. I then spent a few hours trying to randomize drops within my barrels, which is kind of annoying because the game I'm trying to emulate doesn't really have randomized drops, at least not for treasure, but I figure I can take this time to set up my health potions instead, even though I'm pretty sure there's going to be an entire lesson on them in the future. Just Just another day. Day 105. Today was a lesson on infinite loops, on infinite loops, on infinite loops, within cells interlinked, within cells interlinked. Sorry about that. I got halfway through the lecture when I ran into this problem. And it was a weird one, because every time I hit a box, my system would crash. Yet, I couldn't recreate it. Sometimes it would crash on the first hit, sometimes on the third. Then I said, I give up, and I went to watch the rest of the lecture, which turns out tells you how to solve the exact problem I was having. All you need to do is use a Boolean to prevent Unreal from trying to break things twice. In Blood Black Nothingness, it began to, just another day. Day 106. Today I must have been in upstate New York because I learned all about Niagara. No, not the falls, but the particle emitter engine within Unreal. It's a ton of fun to mess around with. I really like how you can see all the updates in real time, and the language to make changes is very clear. It may look daunting at first, and it still is daunting after what little I learned about it today, but at least it makes my items look badass. Just another day. Day 107. Today is a challenge day, and I need to make even more treasure. An idea I'm not super jazzed about because I don't need all that much treasure in my game, at least in my head I don't. So I'm very simply going to create 3 more types of experience pickups, because why not? Small, medium, and large. Just another day. Day 108. Today is a special day because I learned about attributes in games, which allowed me to make health bars for my enemies. And it's weird how much these little additions make it feel so much more like a game. It almost feels like anyone can make a level in Unreal or make things interact with each other. But a user interface? That's for pros only. Pros like me, right? It sounds weird to say, but one of the lessons I'm looking forward to the most is learning how to make a save file in a menu screen. Just another day. Day 109. My anxiety has heightened after the day's learning, in which I discovered meta properties. These suckers tie widget functions to C++ and Blueprint classes, or at least I think they do. But what worries me about them isn't my lack of comprehension in their use. Rather, it's that they require the names to match in both Visual Studio and Unreal, aka yet another point of failure will be introduced into my code, because I, or any other idiot can tell you, remembering the names for things and how they're spelled correctly is hard. Just another day. Day 110. Well, today fucking sucked. I spent all day trying to get my character to take damage, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. There's just so many different things called health bar. There's a health bar widget, there's a health bar component, there's a health bar attribute, and all of them function differently. Yet, all of them are interconnected. I really do not know what to do, nor what am I doing wrong. Just another day. Day 111. I took yesterday off because I got insanely frustrated with myself. So I took the day to reset, and I certainly didn't spend it playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Then today, I went back to the first lecture of the chapter and did everything from scratch. Wouldn't you know, I got it working. The problem was in the communication between the blueprint and the C++ file. Mainly, it was these float variables. See, this edit anywhere tag allows me to edit the C++ variables in Unreal Engine. So in theory, I should be able to leave these variables as unassigned floats, so long as they have a U property that makes them not garbage values, and add any values I like. And in theory, the C++ code should be able to read them. But that is just a theory. A game engine theory. In reality, I needed to set those to actual numbers, because for some reason it was causing all my checks to be null, even if I set them in Blueprint, which made nothing work. It feels really good to actually be able to overcome a real challenge in my own life. But it's still just another day. Day 112. Not much to report today. I just got my health bars looking a bit prettier, but I'm at an impasse. The course recommends using health bars that deplete from the edges into the center. Now call me a Mora boomer, but back in my day, RPGs had health bars that depleted from right to left, the way Dagoth intended. So whose side are you on? Right to left? Left to right? Middle out? Either way, it's just another day. Day 113. Today is a hard day because I made no forward progress. Instead, I went back and fixed the way my enemy was behaving, which was poorly. He would only react to hits from the back, even if I was standing in the front or off to the side. And this was really annoying to fix because what I've realized is that it didn't matter where I stood, it mattered where my bat connected with the enemy. So you can stand in front of them, but still hit the enemy on the right. And it still doesn't look perfect, but at least he's reacting to all 4 directions. Just another day. Day 114. I killed my enemy today. Just kidding, he's fine.
I only worked on death animations, so the guy refuses to stay dead. But what I'm extra happy about is that these death animations correspond with the hit locations that I fixed yesterday. And the course didn't tell me how to do this. I had to do it myself, but I did make it work, and I even got it on my first damn try. It's still just another day. Day 115. You ever have a class where your teacher asks, remember the topic from earlier this year that we discussed briefly? And you have to hit them with, that is how I felt dealing with enums or enums or whatever the hell they're called. But I braved through my confusion and ended up learning about multi-threading, which turns out is just a fancy word for multitasking, which allows Blueprint to cycle through animations like the Tour de France. Now when my enemy goes down, they stay down. Just another day. Day 116. Today must be the end of a Barney episode because it's time to clean up. And when I say clean up, I mean clean up my death animations. These are little things that you can't really see through video, but important things like removing collisions so that you can actually walk through the dead body, or making the health bars not constantly be overhead. It's just another example of getting something to quote unquote work in game dev. Sure, you got it working, but now you got to get it working well. Just another day. Day 117. It's challenge day today, and for this challenge, I need to make one of my weapons a two-handed weapon. Psych, I actually already did that, because see, there was an earlier challenge that made the mistake of telling me I couldn't do something, so I went and did it. Basically, the hard part's already done. Now I just need to create a series of attack animations, which I do by creating a new attack montage. Then I add a simple if check to my already built attack checks, and bam! Oh wait, hold on, I can't move. Just another day. Day 118. Okay, so I'm stuck in place from yesterday and I don't really know why, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with my character state. See, my character is only supposed to be able to move when they are not attacking, and my attack function puts them in the character state of attacking. But I think my new attack function doesn't have any code to put them back in that unoccupied state. My only problem is I forgot how to create that code. So here I go, learning again. And I found that the check is in the animation blueprint, and adding an attack end function to my new attack animation solved the problem. Just another day. Look at my enemy move around like he is too cool to move his legs. Today was day 119 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. And today was a win because I got to learn about enemy navigation. Yes, I finally mastered the buzzword that is AI. ChatGPT has nothing on my skeleton that's programmed to attack tables. Real talk though, this is one of those lessons that was super fun to do in Blueprint, but I'm pretty sure will be the death of me in C++ because I'm horrible at vector arithmetic. And yet call me Theoden, King of Rohan, because I ride for death tomorrow. Just another day. Day 120. I took 3 days off because I was sick. And guess what? I'm still sick. So I didn't do much today outside of import some animations from Adobe. And this was enlightening because I didn't realize that dwarves walked differently than, say, orcs. I mean, sure, we all know zombies walk like this, but back in my day when this Mora Boomer was coming up, it didn't matter if you were blue, green, or shirtless and ripped, everyone walked the same. But for my current project, I'm picking zombie. Just another day. Day 120. Today was a cool day because I made my enemies run. But more than that, I made it so they can switch between an undead stumble to a full-on zombie sprint. I did this by using a 1D blend space. These are basically graphs, but on the y-axis you have animations, and then on the x-axis you have a number, in this case ground speed. Then Unreal does some magic and moves your character's skeleton between those animations. This did cause my game to stutter like crazy, but features like these are why I like using Unreal. It makes AAA features possible even as a solo dev, but it's still just another day. Day 126. I hate refactoring. My enemies were moving until I decided to quote-unquote clean up my code. Now they stay still regardless of what's in my patrol array, meaning I have to use ulog statements all over the place to see what functions are working and which ones aren't. And so far I haven't been able to get this fixed, and I think I'm just going to go on to the next lecture because I can see from that lecture that we're going to refactor even more, and maybe my problems from refactoring will be solved by refactoring. Just another day. Day 127. You know how yesterday I said I'd give up making my enemy move to different points? Well, I didn't. I sat down and took a YouTube comments recommendation to use breakpoints within the IDE, and I've managed to figure out my code is setting my patrol targets to null pointers. Why this happens with the full array in the editor, I do not know. But I'm not giving up. I'm simply beaten.
It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life.
So I moved on to the next lecture, which was all about pawn sensing components. And I gotta say, after using these for roughly 2 hours, Hideo Kojima has nothing on me. I mean, it's amazing that this comes pre-baked with the ability for AI to understand sight and sound. These could enable stealth mechanics that Metal Gear Solid could have only dreamed of, all in the hands of some idiot who really doesn't know how to use it. But hey, I was able to make the log display pawn scene, so I'm counting today as a win. Just another day. This is what a hollow victory looks like. It's day 128 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and my enemy is still not moving at all. My idea to power through lessons until I find the problem has not worked. Yes, I was able to make enums for my enemy, and yes, my enemy can see my pawn and do all of this code, but it still won't move, which means it's not just a problem with my patrol array, but the whole damn movement component. Tomorrow, there will be no forward progress. Instead, I will go back to the start of this unit and patiently work my way back to where I am today. And that's just another day. Day 129. It's been 4 days since I last posted, but I can finally report progress. I've gotten my enemy to move again. This after a couple days of troubleshooting and a couple more days of dealing with an impacted wisdom tooth. I can safely say I'm back where I was 10 days ago. The problem seemed to stem from a player input component that was being set up, but I asked myself why I needed a player input component on an AI enemy, then deleted it, and then everything started to work. It should feel good, and it kinda does, but it's still just another day. Look, my enemy can't see me, and you know what that means. I'm John Cena, and this is teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it. Day 130. Man, it feels good to move forward. My enemy now chases me with a run animation and patrols with a walk animation. It will even lose interest in me if I break the line of sight. Sure, I've implemented half of this stuff before, but it turns out that redoing the code actually moves much faster than doing it for the first time. Who would have thought that practice makes perfect? And I'm still not perfect, and it's still just another day. Day 131. Today I got to download more weapons from Fab, which is still a pain to use, but take my pain as another reminder that they do have some cool free stuff to add to your library every month. This elf character will be a great stand-in for Legolas in my game, and these wooden structures look great. What is not so great is that I have to input my weapon meshes into Blender to change the origin locations. This feels like something that Unreal should be able to do. Is it? Am I stupid? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. And either way, it's just another day. 32. Today is all about weapons and adding more of them to my game. But how many more? How do I stop feature creep of trying to add every weapon in existence? I'm trying to emulate the siege level from LOTR Return of the King. Should I just try to remember every enemy? There has to be a better way. Oh shit, GameFAQs, my beloved. How I missed the years of using you for every Zelda quest I was confused about. It's just another reminder of the enshittification of the internet, wikis, and the disease that is fandom. If I ever have a wiki for my game, it's gonna be like GameFAQs, and you're gonna like it. But skipping the archers and those that dual wield, because I have no idea how to implement those, I'm left with around 15 enemy types. And then out of those 15 enemies, there are like 3 weapons I need: swords, pikes, and maces. Now that I got those 3 covered, time to do even more coding for my enemy. And it's still just another day. Day 133. Today's gonna be a quick one because I'm not done bug fixing. See, we had to learn more about inheritance today and create a base character class that both my enemy and my hero pulls from. So this means that we have to take all the functions that we've already done and basically copy and paste them into this new character class, and then remember to include everything else that those functions need to function. If you think that sounds hard, it is. At least to me, it's just another day. Day 134. Today was nothing but good. The problem I had last night fixed itself. Because with coding, turning things on and off again puts in work. The rest of the day was spent celebrating and building out base classes for my enemy, but only using Blueprint, no C++ yet. I even finally got to add a shield to my enemy. It's not destructible yet, but man, it was so much easier to do this his way than it was mine. Just another day. Day 135. Small update today. Just gave my enemies the ability to hold weapons. So now I got a sword, a spear, and a mace. So now my 3 types of weapons have 3 types of enemies. And something about seeing my enemy types with different weapons makes the scope of my project feel so much more achievable. but it's still just another day. So I finally figured out why I hate refractoring. It's this tool, the extract tool. Much like Pippin touching the Palantir, when I extract functions using this tool, I wind up confused and pissing everybody off. It's day 136 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and today I refactored the old-fashioned way by creating definitions for functions that I've now written in the header file, then manually in cutting pasting code. I think this works for me like handwriting my notes. In the process of actually creating the functions and cutting the code helps me keep track of what those functions do and their parameters. The only problem is that it takes fucking forever, so it's still just another day. Day 137. Not a huge update today, yet again. Just more and more refractoring things from my character and enemy classes into the base character class. It sort of feels like we should have started with the base character rather than refactoring everything. But hey, at least I got my enemies to attack me. Just another day. Let's play troubleshooting in Unreal Engine on day 138 of teaching myself Unreal until I'm good enough to get a job at it. My enemy is not reacting to hits. This could be so many things. It could be my code, it could be Unreal, it could be the models, it could be the boxes, it could be anything.
It could even be a boat!
But I'm guessing it's not my weapon because it still breaks barrels. And I'm assuming it's not the hit implementation code because that function runs on the barrels and they are breaking. So I assume that it must be one of the functions in my base class or my enemy class. So now we add UE logs in and give it a try. Okay, so none are firing at all. Just another day. Day 139. My enemy can't take a punch. And in yesterday's troubleshooting video, I noticed my character isn't hitting the barrel until the end of the animation. So I increased my weapon hitbox, and now I connect with my enemy. But my enemy is attacking instead of dying like he ought. Add in another UE log, and now I know his health is going down to 0. So why is die not being called? It's in get hit. Oh, get hit is not being called. Okay, calling that now. And look at that. He half dies. It's progress, but it's still just another day. Day 140. I am become death, destroyer of character models. But for real, I've debugged my death animation. It turns out that I was not turning off pawn sensing when my enemy dies. So its enemy state was being updated when it saw my character model attack it, canceling the death animation, but still calling the die function so it would disappear standing up. Now that he's down, I'm so happy to finally move forward. But it's still just another day. Day 141. I didn't really do a lot today, but I did add the engage state to my enemy. Then I basically worked on fine-tuning its attack animations by adding attack notifies to him and making that callable from Blueprint. I'm not looking forward to tomorrow, as that lesson is titled Finishing Refactoring, but even that will be just another day. Day 142. Shave my head and give me a mop because I just spent the whole day cleaning. My code, that is. My apartment's still a mess. It was tedious, and I did accidentally rename a bunch of things I shouldn't have with the rename tool, a tool I wish I knew about when I first started refactoring. But the code looks better, and most importantly, it's still bug-free, so that's a win for me. But I did figure out I need to adjust my back socket. Just another day. Day 143. Today we are finally having my enemy connect with my character. But first, let's do even more refractoring. Now let's add some hitboxes to my character's weapon, give them anim notifies, and we should be good to go. Now see, this is hilarious. I know what the problem is here. He's clearly hitting himself because of the hitbox on the bat, but I simply don't have time to fix this right now, as my shift starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow. So this man's gonna be stuck hitting himself through eternity, and it's still just another day. Day 144. Today we are troubleshooting my enemy hitting himself. I think this has to do with collision, but before I click around checkboxes for 30 minutes straight, I'm gonna look at my box trace function, as most likely there is a coding error made by me and not by the devs of Unreal. I started by adding the owner of the weapon to the actor ignore list, so now he isn't hitting himself, but he isn't hitting me either, nor am I able to hit him. Time to add some UE logs. Okay, they aren't working at all. So let's test the weapon on a barrel. Still nothing. But is it my code or the bat blueprint within Unreal? I can check this by using one of my other weapons and found out that yes, my bat blueprint is screwed. But my enemy still isn't really reacting to hits, and he's gone back to gliding at me to assert dominance. This was just another day. Day 145. UE logs and debug boxes are more powerful than 10 million suns. Yesterday I got my enemy to stop hitting himself, but he couldn't hit me, which is weird since the collision settings on my weapon hitboxes was correct. But these UE logs showed me that the weapon box means dick. It's really the box trace that handles the connection of items. And this is where the box trace point was on the top of my weapon, and this was the box trace point on the bottom of my weapon. Here's where it should be. Now I can hit my enemy every time, and my enemy can hit me, as proven by my beautiful UE logs. But my enemy is still gliding, and it's still just another day. Teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, day 146. Today is challenge day, and there's nothing more than I enjoy than a challenge I know how to do, which is in this case, adding sound effects to my enemies' death animations. But what does a skeleton dying sound like? I know in Oblivion they hiss, and I kind of like that, but I found a Reddit thread pointing out that Daggerfall uses sound effects from Hanna-Barbera. And since I want to be Tom Howard, let's use that. I'll make a meta sound to play either this, or this, at random with different speeds and pitches, and boom, it's just another day. Day 147. I love the auto retargeter in Unreal Engine. I just watched a complicated how-to on how to manually retarget character animations that involved a lot of T-posing, using Blender, and a bunch of bullshit I don't want to do because I'm tired. And then I realized I don't need to do any of it. I can simply press a few buttons and achieve the same result. I know it might not be best practices, but it's nice to get an easy day, even if it is just another one.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
On day 148 of teaching myself Unreal Engine, I learned a valuable lesson on checking your damn headers. Today was supposed to be implementing a character hit reaction montage, because we know through the UE logs on day 145, my character is being hit. The problem was the get hit function was not called. I was able to brute force this for my enemy, since it had another function with an F vector, but my character class doesn't. So I actually had to address the root of the problem. How horrible. Then I compared my stupid skeleton to the glorious barrel, which breaks every time, and I noticed that I never set up the I hit interface on my newly created base character. So I added it in, rebuilt my source files, and now it bleeds. Just another day. Day 149. Earlier in the course, I noticed that my hit reacts were being weird. They worked, but attacks that came in from the front pushed my enemy to the side. And this is because my weapon was generating the impact point based on the hitbox, which collided on the side. So today I adjusted my directional hit reacts to be based on the location of the hitter. And that makes everything feel much better, despite being arguably less accurate. And it's still just another day. Day 150. Woo! Today I learned how to put my character into slow-mo, which is badass. And then I spent the better part of the hour in Blender, trying desperately to add a root bone to my animations, with horrible results. After all this fiddling, I realized I really just don't need a root bone after all, or at least I hope I don't, because right now my enemies are able to jump and spin all over the place like they got one. So I'm taking the W and counting it as just another day. Day 151. Call me Captain Picard because my enemies are moving at warp speed. Not literally, they actually move pretty slow. But today I did learn about motion warping, which is basically how you get killed in a FromSoft game when an enemy's looking away from you, but yet their attacks seem to follow you. And it's apparently one way that games actually increase their difficulty, by making it easier for enemies to magically snap to you, which mine do now, but it's still just another day. Day 152. Today was a bit annoying because it was a lot of retreading. See, I got motion warping working yesterday, and then spent the day refining that warping by adding in 2 variables to warp from, when it seems like Unreal was already doing that because I had to uncheck a box that said use rotation. But on the plus side, sitting down and working with my animation blueprint today got my skeletons to walk again. Although I still think gliding is more fun, walking is proper. I do need to figure out a walk speed that matches the animation speed so it stops looking like it's sliding. Is there an easy way of finding that speed? There has to be a sweet spot, but either way, it's just another day. It's challenge day on day 153 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and we are going to be adding a jump attack to my main character. Thankfully, I've already done a bit of the base work by adding in a heavy attack, so I really just need to add that to the animation montage, add in all the proper notifies, throw in a couple more functions, and make sure everything's named correctly. Then here we go. Oops, I forgot to add the motion warping component to my blueprint. Now here we go. Oops, didn't have root motion selected. Now here we go. Success. But it's still just another day. Day 154. I'm getting back in the saddle after my wisdom tooth has been taken out, and it's fitting because today focuses on health, mainly getting health added to my player character. And in the process, I learned more about the widget editor and how to add images. I think it's funny that the course goes with this Omega symbol because it can be applied to so many games. From Space Marine to God of War, it works no matter where you, but it's still just another day. Day 155. Today was not that impressive. I basically just undid the blueprint work I did yesterday, then redid it in C++ to get my overlay working again. The one important thing I did learn today is that you can reparent a blueprint to a C++ class. The power of this feature seems to be on par with the One Ring when it comes to making sweeping changes on a project. So while it's good to know and I could have used it in the past, I won't be using it going forward. Just another day. Day 156. So after getting my health bar to show up through pure C++, I then had to get it to update as I got hit. And I already did that for my enemy, so this will be easy, right? Wrong. Because I got so fancy with the reparenting tool, it took forever to figure out the correct change of hierarchies to get this to update. So I'll explain it to you. This blueprint holds the image files and manages the percentage of the stat bars. This blueprint has a parent of this C++ class, which is initialized through this separate HUD C++ class, which is assigned to the player controller through the settings menu, allowing them to access that HUD through the player character class. Isn't that so simple? And isn't it so just another day? When I was a punk kid, I would often try to answer homework questions as soon as I thought I knew the answer, only to get them wrong. 30 years later and 157 days of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, I'm still making the same mistakes. For example, I have to take a pose from this animation and then add it to my animation blueprint so that my character stays dead. You just need to click create pose from the reference animation and boom. Wait, that's a stock pose. What did I do wrong? Cue me spending hours on the internet wondering why a skeletal mesh wouldn't accept the animation pose until I looked on how I did it for my skeleton and realized that I don't need to make the pose a pose. What I need to make the pose is an animation, which is still easy to do, and it's still just another day. Day 158. Call me Alec Baldwin from the hit 90s thriller Malice.
You ask me if I have a God complex? Let me tell you something. I am God.
Because I've created souls. Real talk though, I spent a lot of time futzing around with the Niagara system today, which I thought was complex until I clicked on the material system that's used for it, and then basically just decided to nope out of there and stick with good old-fashioned orbs. Orbs never hurt no one. Just another day. Did you hear about the new Oblivion remaster that's being made in Unreal Engine? It's day 159 of teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to get a job at it, and all I did today was make it so I could collect souls using a pickup interface. But I want to mention this new remaster because it keeps me hopeful that my effort isn't in vain, that hundreds of games are well suited to this remastered on top of Unreal Engine style of remaster. But it's still just another day. Day 160. Today is a fun one because I got my soul system to actually function, as well as add these cool explosions and pickup sounds when I collect one. But it begs the question, what does a soul sound like? Like a Fable orb? Like a Crackdown orb? Like a Minecraft orb? A Sonic ring? Or maybe a Viva Pinata menu alert? Personally, I'm leaning towards Fable or Crackdown, but let me know in the comments what you think it should be. Just another day. Day 161. I would give an update today, but see, I'm trying to export this dodge animation from Epic Games' own Valley of the Ancients test project. It looks great and already has Foley sounds built in. The only problem is I've been waiting all day for this test game to compile shaders. This is hyperbole. I did get it working, but if Epic Games can't get their own shaders to compile in a reasonable time, what chance do I stand? Just another day. Day 162. Call me Adele because I'm rolling in the deep. No, not Black Fathom deeps. See, I spent all day today getting my stamina bar deplete and not let me roll if there's not enough stamina, which means tomorrow's the next section challenge, and then after that there's only one more unit until I'm done with the course, and I don't really know what I'm gonna do next. The course recommends taking a full game dev course that will teach me how to do things like level up a character and create saves, aka actually make a game. But I've also heard about the free Unreal Engine Academy, and that could be a great source too. If anyone has completed any of these, please let me know what I should do in the comments. And it's still just another day. Day 163. It's challenge day today, and the task is simple. Make a health potion using the pickup interface. Easy peasy. I'm simply going to copy the treasure pickup C++ class and then make it add to the current health percent. Then go to the health potion I made earlier, reparent that class to the health crystal class I just made make sure my headers are good to go, and now we test. Hey, what the hell? Isn't this the part where it's supposed to not work and I have to spend 3 times as long bug fixing? Just another day. Day 164. Today we have learned even more about animation blueprints, mainly how to create a template blueprint. It's good and useful stuff, and it enables me to do things like make a killable deer, but at the end of the lesson, it asked us to reparent our enemy class to this new blueprint template, and I just said,
No. No, I don't think I will.
because I swear to God, if I break my enemy blueprint that I just spent the better part of a month tweaking, I'll freak. Just another day. Day 165. Templates are a wonderful thing that makes creating things faster. But the problem with them is that if there's an error in the template, it's going to get replicated. So now my deers are sliding all over the place. But I fixed this with my skeletons, so I know I can do it this time. I figured the problem is with the blend space. I know it's working because the idle animation is running, but no matter what I set the speed to or where I put the animations, my stag still glides. I'm guessing the problem is somehow with my ground speed variable, which I can't brute force because this is a template and not an actual animation blueprint. So right now I'm kind of stuck, and it's just another day. Teaching myself Unreal Engine 5 until I'm good enough to... You know what? I actually didn't do this today. I just actually played the Unreal remake of Oblivion, and goddamn is it fun. Tweet sent. Day 166. If you are wondering if I fixed my walk animations from yesterday, nope. Not yet. I'm skipping it because I got too frustrated. And today I'm focusing on giving my stag an attack, which I thought would involve a lot of crazy complex processes, but it really just involves attaching a sword to its head, which makes sense because this is technically how I made attacks on my first enemy. Then I just changed the hitbox on the sword and make it invisible. Or I could just leave it there and have the player deal with a dozen heavily armed deer gliding towards them. Just another day. Day 167. Okay, back to debugging my deer. I know the blend space is working because it's breathing. This leads me to suspect it's a problem with my ground speed, because that's what should change the graph. So I made a separate function to return the ground speed within my enemy blueprint. And I'm getting good speed. But when I made the function return the ground speed from the parent animation blueprint, it got nothing. So I made another function within the parent animation blueprint outside of the thread safe portion. And behold, he walks. Unreal Engine and Blueprint don't like what I did, but I love his chasing run so much. It's like a dog with socks on. Just another day. Day 168. One problem down and another takes its place. I've created an attack animation for my deer. I've given that animation notifications, and I've enabled root motion on it. All the things that the deer needs to hit, but for some reason the collision notices aren't firing. It's infuriating because this exact same code works for my skeleton, meaning that the problem is once again with the animation template. But even adding the functions in there does nothing. Just another day. Day 169. Hey Lamo. I've cracked it. I truly believe the most important piece of coding across any language is the ability to print strings. Through several elegantly placed prints, I was able to check each part of my anim blueprint functions one by one until I found that actually they're all fine, and it was my general typecast that was failing. This is because my deer actually has a parent class of base skeleton, not base enemy, dummy. So the code from my enemy C++ class was not being used. But now I've weaponized my deer, and it's just another day. Day 170. Yesterday I was killed by a deer. Today, the hunter becomes beaten to death, and I complete my course. It's the dreaded day of deciding what's next, and I've chosen to take your guys' advice and use this course to make a small game. The goal originally was to rebuild the wall defense level from The Lord of the Rings. So here's the list of things that I want to add. A wall or tower to defend, a ladder for enemies to climb, the ability to knock down ladders as a player, a meter that will slowly go up as the amount of enemies increase on screen, and end the level when it crosses a certain threshold. And that will be the entire game. And then I'll move on to his next course. But it's still just another day. Day 171. Okay, so we're making a game now. Let's start with the first part. A meter that fills as enemies populate a set zone in the level. Then when the meter is filled, the game is over. Now let's break this down into achievable goals. Let's start by setting up the visual of the meter. I already have a HUD which we can use, and I can duplicate my old health bar, but I need to flip it and then remove the stamina bar. Turns out there's no way to flip it in Unreal, so let's try Photoshop. Erase the bar, flip the image, and boom, imported back into Unreal. Now just to add it to my HUD. Oh, that's not right. But I have no clue why it would look like that. This is how it looks in Photoshop. After doing some Googling, I found out it has something to do with the alpha channels of the TGA file, but all of a sudden I'm learning about Photoshop rather than Unreal. Just another day. day 172. After spending a good chunk of time brute forcing the alpha channels of my enemy bar, this is the final result. I've also created an enemy counter within the character attributes, and I'll use that to store the information that will move the bar. So I'm going to make a new actor class that spawns enemies based on a timer, and then stops when it hits a max. I don't know how to use a timer, so I'm just going to yoink it from my attack time. Then I need to set the spawn parameters for my enemies, which I'm just going to pass in the actor's own information. Then I'm going to create a blueprint from that C++ class and give it a mesh so I can place it, and boom, we are spawning. Now I just need to tie all these enemies to my bar, and it's just another day. Day 173. Time to make my enemy bar move. I don't really remember how to do this, but I got everything set up correctly in the HUD component within Unreal. So now I'm basically just going to copy everything I did for my stamina bar, but create a version called enemy bar. The bar has 5 components: the overlay, which houses the bar widget within Unreal, which we bind in the code of the overlay to a progress bar named the same thing as the bar widget, and then we give that overlay component to our spawner. But I need to make sure that the character in the spawner can affect the same overlay. Hopefully I can just use the same overlay file for 2 different actors and it will work. Let's see. Oh, I can't? Just another day. Day 174. Okay, so I found a way around my current problem of being unable to affect my character's overlay with my spawner actor. I need to grab the HUD from the world file, then the overlay from the HUD, then the enemy bar from the overlay, and then update that enemy bar using the variables on the spawner. And it worked, kind of. It had 2 modes, full and empty. So I looked into what I was passing through for the percentage, and wouldn't you know it, it's whole numbers. I changed that up, and bam, I got an enemy bar. Just another day. Day 175. Ladders. Something that games have struggled with for such a long time. Do you give a player an animation to climb? Do you let them move up the ladder by themselves? Or do you just put them near it and have them shoot up it like a rocket? Because that doesn't affect the pace of play. The Unreal Online store has entire plugins built around ladders exclusively, and when I look at them I get worried. But in the meantime, I have an even bigger problem. Ladders are only needed to climb things, and I don't really have anything to climb. I could spend a good few hours creating my own castle using some of the free assets I got from Fab, but I also got this free castle from Fab. It's not perfect, but it's a good starting point, and it will let me game things out more, especially when it comes to distances. Just another day. Day 176. Okay, so I got my ladder mesh, and it's not medieval, but it looks good enough and it was free. So how do you code ladder climbing into a video game? You create a child class of your item, create an overlap sphere, which logs the item you're overlapping with. My real problem is I store all this information in a pickup interface. I need my enemies to climb as much as I need my character to climb. So I'm actually going to move this interface into my base character. That way I can build out scalable characters. But the question is, will this break everything? Yes, it will. I can no longer pick up weapons. Just another day. Day 177. Call me Daxter because it's debugging time. Forget UE logs, we're moving on to UE spheres. Because I'm not sure what's not working. My base character, my item, or my pickup interface. Who's that bug? It's pickup interface. I have once again forgotten how to properly assign it to my base character class, but with that solved, all I need to do is put in a little action state check, change my movement to Z coordinates, and I should shoot up. Well, that didn't work, but I know from my logs I'm correctly entering climb phase. It's this code right here that isn't working. Just another day. Day 178. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Houston, we have liftoff. That's right, I got access to my Z axis movement working. Turns out that you need to put your character into something called flying mode, which allows you to move up and down. But I don't really need to move up. Instead, I need to move along a line that runs parallel to my ladder. But I assume I can draw a line between the top and end parts of my ladder, marked by spheres. Then pass in that line for the movement vector, and bam, look at that. Sure, everything crashes if I try to climb without a ladder nearby. And do I even really count this as climbing? You're goddamn right I do. Just another day. Day 179. Okay, so I can put my character on the correct path of the ladder. Now I just need to make it so they stop at the top and the bottom, but how do I do this? I'm not sure. I still haven't gotten it to work, but I did want to shout out an Epic Forums post I've been coming back to. And from this post and other Epic forums, I found one way to limit movement is by restraining the movement vector values, which are either 1, 0, or -1. By adding conditions, I should be able to make my character stop moving when it hits. Okay, that didn't work, but it did make it so I can dismount and start running again after entering the ladder. So just another day. Day 180. The goal of these past few days have been getting this
this overlap sphere to work. The bottom one is working, and the code looks the same. So in an effort to find the difference, I noticed that my character cast within the code casts for base character. So I figured out update the parent class of my main character to base character, which broke everything. I couldn't move or turn, so I reset it and still nothing worked. Then I spent a few hours trying to fix various bugs, but the only thing that did it was deleting the project files and rebuilding. Now my hair won't load, but I did get my overlap sphere to work. Just another day, day 181. For anyone wondering how I got my ladder overlaps to work, I had to stop trying to use a separate function. Instead, I just tied the dynamic events of the overlap to functions I already have within my pickup interface. So now I'm moving on to adding animations. And does anyone have a good spot for free animations that isn't Mixamo? Their only ladder climbing animation they have is this one. And I have never seen anyone start a ladder climb like this, ever. But I'll use it for now. Also, how does one implement a simple version control? I think it's something I want to work on after these ladders. Just another day, day 182. Look what I can do now. Sure, if I move, it freaks TF out. But if I end up back in the sphere, I can even dismount at the top. Now what to do about this pole dance? I know it's being caused by my climb ladder anim, but that should work. It's in place, no root motion, and my blend machine seems to be working well. I figure it has something to do with the coordinates of the animation itself, which I tried to update on Blender, but made the grudge girl. I think the brute force way is to pixel match the two animations in Blender, but this is another thing that I feel like I should be able to fix in Unreal, but it's just another day. Day 183. Well, we were all wrong. All I needed to do to fix the spinning problem was click this little box. Did it take me an hour of Googling and trial and error until I found it? You bet. But now that my ladder is barely working, let's get it to work good. For starters, I need to lock my character's rotation to it, which I can do by setting its rotation as a variable within the C++ code, then using that variable to update the rotation and locking it in place. I also changed the movement speeds, the animation speeds, the overlap points, and tomorrow we can work on the dismount. Just another day. Day 184. Call me Baby Bop from Barney because it's time to clean up. Not my disheveled apartment, but my code. I plan to add a dismount, which should be a nice and easy montage, but this climb code is scuff. I mean, just look at it. Compared to the sexy equip function. Here's it nicely refactored, and I didn't even break anything. Now I can use my base character to play the montage, and it kind of worked. I'm noticing that using a sphere for a trigger point is hurting me, because ideally it should be a flat line. Then the animation drops my character backwards a bit. I don't care about that. But after the dismount, the ladder seems to block it. I thought I could turn off collision when I make it my active ladder, but it stops being my active ladder right when I dismount. So I think I'm gonna have to use motion warping, which I barely comprehend. Just another day. Day 185. Let's apply motion warping to this animation. Thankfully, it's already something that I've done, but in an attack animation. So the problem is it's exclusively built for combat, and I just need to change it to make it work for movement. This will revolve around the dismount target of the ladder, which I need to create. Then I'll add a point to my map, select it as the dismount target for the ladder, which should pass it on to my character, which should pass it on to my blueprint, which should pass it on to my motion warping component, which should not work. I think the cause is the code, but I'm really not sure. And the fact that it's working in the blueprints and this print string is firing has me concerned. Just another day.
Day 186. Call me Haggith from Deep Space Nine because I've sabotaged my own warp engine. Real talk though, I'm done trying to get this to work. Instead, I'm just going to make my ladder slightly better. I still like the spheres that I use to mount and dismount, but they do not serve as good points of origin for either my ascension vector or my stop movement component. So I'm going to keep the spheres and then add in 2 boxes and 2 points. The boxes will serve as thresholds for the top and bottom of the ladder, while the points will be used to calculate the movement vector. This didn't solve my problem, but it did make things look prettier. Just another day. Day 187. That's right, I got it to work. Yes, it looks horrible, but I could not care less. I know the settings to make that better are just locked in the animation menus, and in fact, I might get rid of animations entirely and just use teleporting, but I found out the problem was with my validated get not being valid. I thought it was, because it is valid in C++, but it wasn't valid when it was being called in the blueprint for some reason. So I created a function that was blueprint callable that would get that target, passed it in instead, and got it working. This is huge, but now
now I have to get this working for my enemies, and then I'm gonna have to automate it. Just another day. Day 188. Okay, so now I have to take my working climbing code, rip it from my player character, and add it to my base character. Unfortunately, my player character can still climb without air, so now I have to automate the climb code in my enemy, which already auto chases its targets on tick. So I'm going to use that target's Z coordinates and compare it to my enemy's Z coordinates to see if they're above my enemy, which should work out of the box, but I'm not expecting it to, because why would it? Just another day. Day 189. Check this out. That's right, I got the enemy climbing, and also interacting with items, which I could use to make an equip function, but this is not the time for feature creep. It turns out I just needed to brute force the setting of the overlap item, and then add some logic for it in the admin, which brings me right back to the dismount. I have two problems now. First is my tick function, which is doing too many things, including resetting my action states. Problem two is that instead of beautiful clean enums, I'm using bytes, which is helpful to know and probably better in the long run, but if you change the location of one byte in the array, the entire code breaks. Just another day. Day 190. Okay, so I'm done with ladders for a bit. I know this code is not good. I know this variable should be set with a boolean, and I know that keeping the tick function like this is bad. I simply do not care. I actually messed around a bit with simply teleporting the targets to the dismount target with no animation, and it looks actually much better, so I might just do that. But the dismount is currently working as well for the enemy as it is for me, so I see this as an absolute win. Now I want to work on my character attack. Currently, they swing randomly every time. That ends now. One of the reasons LOTR's combat is so fun is that you can just spam attack into a simple combo that will stop incoming attacks, meaning you can really just button mash and be safe. I have a combo animation, now I just need the code. Just another day.